Hi, good morning. I'm Mr. David Williams, the head of primary at Regent International School, and I'm honoured today to discuss the topic of the importance of play in the early years. A little bit about my background. I've been at Regent International School now for 8 years, and a large proportion of my educational background has been in early years. I've been an early years teacher, despite being a 6'5" man, and it's really something I'm very, very passionate about. And so today, I look forward to sharing some information about the importance of play in early years, and also getting some of your questions. So I've already received some already, and I look forward to answering those and having a discussion with you guys as well. So the importance of play is something that's quite often overstated or understated by adults walking into a room with children in. They often don't see the importance or value, especially as soon as children are able to read, write and count. It can sometimes fall to the background, and that's something I really want you to leave here today, realizing what play is and what play is important, but also the impact that it can have on a child's development, and that it shouldn't be dismissed as a secondary feature of it, really. So by the age of 3, 80% of the human brain is developed, and 90% of it is developed by the age of 5. Of course, those are formative years in the early years. And I just wanted to think for a minute about the input that they receive in their learning during that time. So when you're talking about 90% of the brain being developed, a lot of those years are not spent talking or communicating or sitting in front of a whiteboard being given information in the way that I was taught growing up. It's very much about experiencing the world around them, experiencing new experiences, and the way that that's done at that age is through play, through being able to interact with objects, through play with parents and peers, and a lot of self-play as well, as children sometimes struggle to collaborate until the age of 3 anyway. So that just shows you the importance of that. And if that wasn't enough, UNICEF themselves, alongside things that we see as given rights, such as the ability to be alive, the ability to be safe, the ability to have an identity, they put play as one of their key features that every child has the right to. So that really does emphasize the importance of play. And I'd like to now take a moment, a Mindful Monday moment, if you will, for you to think about play when you were growing up. What did it mean to you? And if you have any comments, please put them in the comment bar at the side so that I can see. And please send your comments forward. So what did play mean to you when you were growing up? And then how did you play? Please leave your comments in the corner. Just give you a couple of minutes. Okay. So we're not being very brave this morning, but if you do feel like you want to be brave and share, please leave a comment there. And in the meantime, I'll tell you a little bit about what I remember. So I remember being a very creative child. I remember creating dens in the woods and things like that, and being very, very innovative and creative. And I remember just using one toy, which was a Bugs Bunny, that was able to be everything, whether it be a Pokemon or a wrestler or whatever it might be that I was into at the time, or a Power Ranger. And really having those imaginative play moments. And I think as we grow up, we lose some of these elements. And me certainly now, looking back as a child, I would describe myself as very creative. As an adult, I wouldn't say so much. I think, we lose some of these elements as we grow. And if we look at characteristics of who we were and who we are now, I think you'd probably see quite a varied difference. And a lot of that is down to, as we grow up, we're not expected to be given the opportunities to be creative and play that children are. The sociologist Carl Jung spent his whole life giving set amount of times to play. Even as a 60-year-old man, he would go to the bottom of the garden and play with twigs, and he said it was the most cognitive developmental part of his day. And he was obviously a very, very intelligent man. And quite often these are things that we don't take seriously, and we possibly should. So there's a great quote here by Christopher Moore: "Children see magic because they look for it." And I know this is about play, but I'd really like just to take a minute about showing you the impact of removing play. and also removing that imaginative side of things. When I was a teacher in the UK, I was teaching science in year 5, and at the same time I was teaching FS1 or nursery as it is in the UK. And in year 5 we were looking at kinetic energy, and we were looking at children developing wind-powered devices. So at the end of their lesson, they had learned all about kinetic energy. They'd learned about hydropower. They'd learned about wind-powered devices as well. And as an extension, I just asked them a simple question: could they go ahead and try and create one themselves? And sadly, even at year 5 in the UK, these children had lost the ability to be creative. They'd lost the ability to use their imagination, and it was really quite sad for me and quite eye-opening. So then I had the idea the next day, children who had 5 less years of curriculum knowledge behind them, to go down into FS1 and see if they themselves could create a wind-powered device. Gave them very, very little information regarding that. And the things they created were not only incredible, they were not only magical and imaginative, but they were also quite feasible. So it just shows if we lose this ability to play, we lose this ability to use our imagination, explore the world around us, then we really, really are putting ourselves and our children at a massive disservice. And thank you very much. We've had a comment through from Maria who says, playing growing up meant everything to me. My friends, neighbours, family, playing in the woods, looking for birds' nests and making stick dens were the best. So we're making dens together. There we are, Maria. That's fantastic. And again, that is the kind of things that, if we're not in a certain line of work, if we're not doing a certain qualification at university, when do we get the opportunities, even as young adults or teenagers, to develop those skills that we've already started to grow and develop at an early age? They're just sort of discarded and not given the credence that they deserve. And it's interesting because that's very much societal and that's very much cultural. There were some researchers that did some work with hunter-gatherer societies, in particular, and I'm not probably going to say this correct, so my apologies, but I'll give it a go. The Umbangili children. The researchers spent a year with them, and they were staggered because these children were cognitively advanced. They had incredible social skills and a real understanding of the world around them. And what the researchers found was that they were up from sunrise to sundown playing. And when the researchers asked the elders, why is this an accepted means of education? And they said, well, how else are they going to learn? And it's so obvious to them because they'd seen the development these children were making. And yet, we think we know it all by and we certainly don't do this at Regent International School. But when I was growing up, it was very much sitting and we would get the opportunity to play in nursery, possibly reception. And then after that, it would be, chalkboards, books straight out and listening to the teacher didactically telling us how we learn. And to be honest with you, jumping ahead a little bit here, I've been here 8 years. I've had many roles, from being an FS2 teacher here to head of primary, head of early years, head of Key Stage 1. And when I took over Key Stage 1, that was something I was very, very keen to do, was to keep that element of play running through. And if you look at our classroom environments, it reflects that. Because if we learn a certain way, why are we stopping that? And looking at research and looking at these anecdotal evidence from researchers who spent time with different cultures, different tribes, different communities, it's there and clear to see that play has a huge benefit, and it's one that is quite often ignored by the Western world. So looking at things like depression and things like that, which is quite interesting. When you look in the natural world itself, animals play. So the researchers think that play is linked to the size of the brain. So the amount an animal plays is linked to how intelligent they are. So dolphins play things like the leaf games. If you haven't seen it, go onto YouTube after this. It's very, very interesting and entertaining. They will drop leaves to each other, and they will see who can pick up the leaf, which of their dolphin counterparts can do that. And there's also some very cruel and outdated research done where they removed play from monkeys that were being raised in captivity, and they ended up being incredibly aggressive, no social skills, didn't know how to interact with the people. I think it was linked to the wire monkey experiment, if you're aware of that. And they weren't given that opportunities to play and develop. And so they didn't know how to act in different social situations. And if you think that's what we're doing, when we are playing shop at home, or when we are pretending, I saw lots of astronauts dressed up for Halloween yesterday. When we're dressing up and pretending to do things, and we're playing with our children, we're having proper focused play. We're giving them experiences. We're showing them how to deal with things in the real world. One of my favourite experiences here at Regent International School, and it's an anecdote I use quite a lot. We have topics that are based on what the children are interested in. So it's not like when I was in school, we were going to learn about the farm because the teacher had got a box of resources handy, and so that's what we're going to learn. We listen to the children, we see what they're interested in, and we adapt the curriculum accordingly. So these children were very, very excited about being pilots. So obviously we can't put them in a plane, and we can't let them drive a plane in real life, but we can still give them those experiences through play. So they developed they created their own plane out of boxes and all other sorts of junk modeling. They then, the teacher then set them tasks on how to be a pilot. And then they got to go to, obviously they were role playing being a pilot all the time in the role play area. Then when they got their badges, they got to go to Dubai Marina, or I think it was Dubai Mall, and they got to fly the simulator, the Emirates A380, some of the children in the back having snack and then swapping and being the pilot. And they came running back in and said, Mr. Williams, we're pilots now. And I just thought that is absolutely fantastic. What those children have been able to do is model real life situations that they would not be able to do in real life. They're doing it through role play, and they're doing it through play. And then it's aspirational in many senses, because when they come to choosing careers, when they come to choosing what they want to do, anything's possible because they've role played these types of experiences. It's just like there's a jungle role play in year one at the moment. Well, we can't take the children to the jungle. So how are they expected to write about it? How are they expected to have the language and use the language accurately? Well, of course, it's giving them the opportunity to play role play, whether it be with small toys, whether it be with the environment around them, and giving them that opportunity. So we see that obviously depression and anxiety are huge problems that we're dealing with young children in the world at the moment, unfortunately. And I think there's some research done looking at the 1950s and what schooling was like then, and what levels of depression there were in children back then. Now, this is quite anecdotal in many senses, because depression and anxiety weren't talked about as much or as frequently back then, and I'm very much aware of that. But when you speak to people from that generation, they often do talk about just being outside and playing all the time, and being able to have more time. When you think about it, they had 5 less weeks of school in the UK at that point. There was less of a restrictive state. You know, when I would go out and play, my mum would always say, "Go to the end of the cul-de-sac. That's as far as you can go." Back then, of course, the world seemed safer. Children were given a lot more freedom, and they were allowed to properly play. And what I mean by that is they didn't have set toys. They didn't have finite restrictions on their play. They would have limited resources, which meant that they were more creative. And what I'd really like you to leave here realizing is the most important play is that self-directed, that free play. And the definition of play that I prefer, there are many, many definitions, is Froberg and Bergen's from 2006. And it reads like this. So play is freely chosen and self-directed. So we're going to talk about this in a minute, but quite often people think that video games are play. They're not really. They can be a way of experiencing. There are some values to playing video games, but it's not true play. It's not free. It's in a constructed world that has certain rules and limitations, and it's not self-directed. Play is transformative, giving new meaning to familiar objects, ideas, and actions, very much like the role play example that we just gave. Play relates to and builds upon prior knowledge and experiences. Play is active engagement whether individuals are using their minds or bodies, and play is enjoyable. So they say that now 5 to 8 more children are 5 to 8 times more likely to develop anxiety and depression. And again, that's anecdotal, but what certainly isn't anecdotal is if we don't give children opportunities to have true free play and experience the world around them, we do give them what's known as a lack of internal locus control, which basically means these children don't know that they can impact the environment around them and the world around them. And you can see that, these children don't believe, if they're not given the right opportunities, that they can enact change, that they can have an impact on the world around them. So it's quite interesting to see that. And again, looking at examples of play today, the way we use the word play, it could be that you're talking about Minecraft. Well, again, there are skills there. There are very creative skills. Some of the worlds that our students have made in Minecraft are absolutely mind-blowing, and it really is a joy to see. However, is it truly free play? No, it's not. Playing at a theme park, again, we use these types of words. That's not, again, true play. And playing organized sports can have an ability to have elements of play. But again, quite often that joy is taken out as well by it being too restrictive and not allowing children to express and experience things. You look at the way that children are coached these days, it can be quite restrictive. So I've seen a few of the questions and we'll come to them, but looking at what play means and how you can support play. So play is the best kind of play is child-led. Then there is also guided play that they can do with you as an adult. There are scaffolded play where you can do things like games or soccer and things like that we just saw. Or there is directed instructions, which are adult designed, controlled, set constraints for an activity. And that's the least impactful kind of play. Okay, so how can you incorporate meaningful play into your children's life? Really, it's using the world around you. If you are wanting your children to become unbelievable writers, why not give them the opportunity to mark make? You go into the shop, why don't you get them to write a list? That doesn't mean that you're then scrutinizing their writing. It means that they're having the experience and the ability to play and pretend to be part of that experience. If you're going on a trip and you want your child to be prepared for that, you can play going on holidays. What will we need to go and pack if we're going to go to the North Pole or what have you? But the most important thing is just giving them a range of resources and letting them experience that. So if you've been to our EYFS classrooms, if you haven't, you're more than welcome to come with me and I'll take you around. We just have a range of resources that children can access. So whether it's paints, whether it's natural resources from the outside world like pine cones or rocks or sticks, whether it is actually set small world toys, these children know that they can go, they can collect them, they can go on adventures with these resources, and that there is no restrictions to what they can and cannot do. So, if someone's taking a leopard small world toy and taking it outside, they're not going to be told off for that. It's these set restrictions that we as adults put in place for these children, and that's not fair. So really, it is about giving them a range of resources that they are accessible, that they're accessible to them, and they can use in a creative and innovative way. So that really is the key to this. I know that there's some questions coming up, so I don't want to repeat myself in a minute. But a little bit about us, like I said, we've been in outstanding early years now for 8 years, and elements of that are obviously throughout our school. And it really is, if there's one thing to leave here, just letting your children experience different resources, open-ended, letting them create, letting them play for large periods of time, and let them have fun and have fun with them, really, is the key. So where next? There is some positive news. We just talked about the 1950s, and we talked about the worries that we've got with depression and anxiety these days if these children don't get the opportunity to play. We talked about how restrictive play can be, and that we're not the best in this society at giving children open-ended opportunities to play. But the importance might be coming back, especially with older people. If you look at companies like Google and you look at companies like Amazon and their office setup, there are elements of play in them. So, you might have slides, you might have golf courses, you might have snooker tables and bean bags and bikes to ride around. This is now commonplace. If you look back at the film Big in 1988, which was a comedy classic, it was funny because Tom Hanks was working in an office. He was a kid. If you remember, he was a kid that became an adult. And, it was very funny because he had all these things like beanbags, soccer pitches, snooker tables in the office. And that was funny. It's not very funny now because it's reality. These companies are investing in play as a way of increasing productivity and increasing imagination and creativity. So there is hope. And I hope that you leave here being able to take away the main key is just letting children play and letting them have that ability to be expressive and imaginative. So I've got some questions. If we can have those up at the bottom of the screen. How do we engage children to read as well? Now, obviously, this is about play, so I'm going to stick to that format. So how do we engage children to read as well as play? Why not combine the two? So again, you're going to the shops. Why not give them a catalogue for them to explore, cut out, pretend to read? Again, this is not a reading test. This is part of their play. They've seen you do it a million times. Let them role play it. Let them look through the catalogue, see what they want to shop. Could be that you're going on holiday. Again, give them literature, give them text that is related to that. What we quite often do in our small world areas, if people don't know what small world is, it's the tiny animals and characters that you can have. You can have anything from astronauts to animals to the ocean, whatever it might be. We have books linked to that quite nearby, so children can research and see and gain information, whether it just be visual by looking at the pictures, which of course is an element of reading and inference, and they're able to use that in their play. So giving them as much range of text to help support their play would be my answer to that. And if you can make it real world, then even better. Okay, next question. How do we engage with our kids in a meaningful way? It's a really lovely question. And I'm sure you're already doing it, to be honest. But it is very much about... So if you remember going back to the different types of play that I talked about, there's free play. And then there's also guided play. So that could be that you're creating a piece of art together. It could be that you are on the floor playing with the toys together and role playing. Remember, it's not silly. We all did it. So... And actually just sitting down and spending time and setting that time aside, which I know is difficult for a lot of parents these days, a lot of pressures and restraints on time, but trying to set aside that time so that you can sit together and play meaningfully together. Okay, I've just got a question here. Some children like to play with guns and swords and bows and arrows, but that can be dangerous. Should we control it? Or let them play with it, play with them? Fantastic question. Really, a lot of it comes down to parental choice and how much you want, and your children. Personally, in school, we don't allow them. And I think these types of things should be limited, if I'm honest, because quite often it's recreation of things they've seen on television and on games, unfortunately. But also quite often as adults, we are drawn to buy these things for children, whereas possibly looking at more holistic natural resources, building blocks, real basic stuff that we had as children, and we were fine, is a better way to go. So again, it is parental choice. I'm not going to say what to do and what not to do, because it's very difficult to manage these situations when you're being asked for them by the children as well. But I think the word control is certainly one that I would focus on. So should we control it? I think the answer is yes. And I think that is by giving them a range of different options. And again, possibly if they don't know how to play with those different resources, going back to the previous question, which was about playing meaningfully and guiding that play with your child. But thank you so much for your question. Thank you. Next question. How to respond when children want to engage or play with us when we are pressed on time? A very, very difficult situation. And I don't know your personal situation, but I'm sure it's the same as many others. Work-life balance is very difficult this day and age, especially with the connectivity that's happened since the pandemic. These apps like Teams mean that we're connected 24/7. I think it really... I sound like I'm repeating myself in the last two questions, but really it is about setting that time aside so that you do have that focused time with your child, so they're not missing out on that input and that guided play with an adult. But then you can use that guided play in order to show them how to play independently too. So when a child starts in a new classroom here, we'll spend a couple of days actually playing with them before we do anything else, before we look at any sort of educational input, or should I say core educational input. Playing is educational input. But we will show them how to use the classroom. We'll show them how to use the construction area, how to use the natural resources, show them that it's fine to mix the two together and be as creative as possible. And then that allows them to have more focused, independent play. So I think it's modeling it really. And also setting that time aside so you can be guided with them too. But again, fantastic question. Thank you for asking. So same question really. These two are very, very much together. So how can I encourage my daughter to play independently? Exactly the same. So yeah. Why does my son play video games all day? Again, it's parental choice. At school, they can't do that. They are locked. But at home, I get asked this more and more, and it's increasingly younger and younger children that I'm being asked. The parents are asking me about this. I think whatever you choose to do, it is parental choice. I do think there has to be. I'm going to go back to Rachita, who said about control. I think you do have to have an element of control in place, and I think whatever you decide as a parent, you have to both parents need to have the same rules. You need to decide on that. You need to tell your child what they are, and you need to stick to it, which is so difficult. A lot of these children show elements of being addicted to their devices at home. And just like with anything, we need to moderate. We need to make sure that these children are not on their devices 24/7. Because again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's not true play. So these children are not playing. They're being rewarded by solving puzzles or winning a certain level. You can tell how many video games I play. I have no idea what I'm talking about with it. But you know, this kind of thing is not play. It's not free. It's not open. And yes, there are elements and skills that they pick up from it. But if they're spending all day doing that, then they are not going to be able to play effectively, which then has a knock-on effect with their social skills and their cognitive development. So I would make sure that you've got your controls in place, that you decide what those are, whether they be 30 minutes a night, an hour a night, whatever you choose, an hour a week, whatever you choose, you just have to stick to it. Thank you. Are there any other questions? I'm not sure there are, because the computer's saying thank you, and I'm saying thank you. We've got 2 minutes spare. If there are any other comments or questions, just a couple of seconds to put them in the comments bar. But thank you so much for your input today. It's been nice to have a couple of people actually being very brave and connecting in the comments section as well. If you have any further questions, I'm always here for you to meet and discuss. If you want to have a little look around the early years here as well, please feel free to reach out to me and I will take you around. And thank you so much for your time, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you.